Good morning, everybody. So I see patients from all walks of life throughout the day, and they have depression, they have anxiety, they have all sorts of personality disorders and mood disorders. But throughout this journey of 8 years of my experience as a psychologist, I have seen a common theme that brings people into a very dark place in their life. And that necessarily doesn't have to be chemical imbalance in the brain, but more about how they think about being a good human being means to them. So I thought of sharing with you all the journey of how a person who starts to become a good human being gets too bad just because they have certain concepts in their mind about how a good human being should behave. And so I came up with the idea of owning your darkness. So when we think about darkness, we know jealousy, we know competition, we know anger, we know malice and selfishness. But that is not all. That is not the darkness for all of us. For us, darkness could be people pleasing, not being assertive about your needs, too concerned about hurting others, and not competing when you should. Healthy competition. Selflessness to the point of self-sacrifice, and a lack of boundaries, which is not able to say no when you should be saying a no. So how do I come to this theory or idea that I have formulated that these things can turn people into bad human beings is how I would like to explain through a few examples. So there was this person who came to me. He is the CEO of a company, and he's in his 55, and he had an idea that being a good human being meant that you should be self-sacrificing and should be for your employees, for your people, for your family. And so he had kept all his needs repressed. He did not buy clothes, and mind you, he is the CEO of a company. He did not buy clothes. He did not go to vacations that did not include uh, his official work. He never thought about enjoying movies or going out with friends, because that was a wastage of time. So this was an extreme case of people pleasing. And when he came to me, he had compulsive sex addiction. And he thought of himself as a very bad human being because of the last 5 to 7 years of his compulsive sex and how he has dealt with these sexual needs, and how he thought that maybe he was born bad and maybe didn't deserve to live anymore. The second example that I want to give you is of competition. So these are two friends who are in who are founders of a startup company. And so, as we know, we should not, as good human beings, be competing with each other because we are friends or in relationship. And that is correct. But we do not have an idea of what competition and healthy competition is. Healthy competition means that you are not pushing somebody down. You are going up because you think that you can go up according to your capabilities. So this friend, both of the friends, one had a bigger share and one had a smaller share. He came to me and he had lots of issues of how do I talk to him about this share being transferred to somebody else. And we started practicing about I being the friend who had a bigger share and he being the friend who had the smaller share, and how do we frame the sentences and how do we go about it, how do we make it as harmless as possible. And on the third session, it clicked to me that what are we doing here? Why are we framing sentences like that? Why are we practicing all of this? And then I came to understand that this person is really in competition. And he has this error in his mind that, which I also bought into for the first 3 sessions, that he should not be competing with his friend. healthy competition. And so he went around and now had started talking to other employees about his friend. Actually, he had started bitching about his friend. So he when he came to me, had started feeling bad about how did he, from there to becoming a very good friend, came to this position. The third example that I want to give you is of a guy who was about to get married, and it's a common experience of bachelors a lot of time that they get into sexual affairs and one night stands. And he was about to get married, and before that, just before he got married, he was about to get married, he had a fling with a girl. And it was understood from both sides that it is going to just be a fling, but the girl got emotional about him, and he was too good to say a no to this girl. And so he had to delay his marriage because he thought that he would not be able to say a no because he would hurt this girl. And because anyways, he did not have any emotions. And so what would he do? He kept on pushing the date of marriage, telling lies here and there. Again, for the first 2 sessions, because now I was experienced with how people want to be good and turn up becoming bad. For the first 2 sessions, we were planning on, okay, what do we say that we hurt this girl less? So what do we lie about? What do we tell her that it makes me look like a good person or a lesser bad person? And then I had to confront him, which was again very, it was too soon for me to give him that arm that he did not have. Why, I'll tell you. I told him that you have to go and confront this girl and tell her that this is all it is, and I cannot go beyond this. But why was it a arm that I gave him before he was ready to use? Because all of these people lacked something that makes us unable to hurt people when we should necessarily, or not please people when we should necessarily, or say a no when we should. And that element is of self-worth. How? Why do we do all of these things? Why do we people please? Because we are good human beings and we do not want to hurt the other person, of course. But because we have very low self-worth. We think that we do not need anything and we do not deserve anything. And so we need to be accepted and loved by everybody. And then we get into people pleasing. So whose need is it? It's my need. Why do we not be assertive? Because we are fearing that the other person is going to reject me. And what happens when somebody rejects us? We feel less accepted, so less loved. What happens when we are too concerned about hurting other people? We think we'll be disliked. Again, disliked, and we'll not be accepted, and we'll not be loved. Not competing when you should. Because if I compete and I fail, then I will get to see my shortcoming and I'll not be able to bear that. Selflessness to the point of self-sacrificing. This is very common in women. And that is, again, because we want to be accepted, liked, loved, and of course, lack of boundaries. So none of these things that we do as good human beings are for the other person. They are actually for ourselves. And that is because we do not have self-worth. Why don't we have self-worth? Why do we think we do not need certain things? Because we do not love ourselves. And why don't we love ourselves? Because we had some kind of trauma as a child where we were told that you have to be a certain way, this way, that way, to be accepted by your primary caregiver. And so, how do you know? This is the point where everybody comes to me, all the good people, and that's a theory in my head now after so many years, that nobody that comes to my clinic very few exceptional people, is a bad person. They are all supremely good human beings. Because all of us are, of course, but the people who are going through depression because of these issues are all supremely good human beings who have turned bad and are doing all the opposite things of what they started out to do. They are lying, they are cheating, they are deceiving. Why? Because they have a concept in their head of how a good human being should be. That's what we call rock bottom. And how do you know you are in rock bottom? You will have depression symptoms, you will have anxiety, your profession might be going down, your relationships are not working, and most importantly, you feel you are a very bad person. That is rock bottom. And that is a situational problem more than a chemical imbalance in the brain. How did you reach here? Lack of self-worth. Your need to be liked, accepted, loved. And how do you get out of here? So the first step is identifying that these things can get you to a rock bottom. The second step that I am going to help you, which should be your first step when you go back home today, because I want a few of you to at least be relieved of this burden. So 50% of self-worth comes from how you have grown up and what your parents told you about who you are. Or did they tell you that I like you and love you and accept you as you are? Or were there conditions? If you were this, that. And the 50% of self-worth comes from your past. What did you do in your past? Those big mistakes in your mind. And we all have them, all of us. That bad thing. Because when you want to get to this place that I'm trying to get to, you need to bring all of them and confess it to yourself. That's the step one. Confess in as detail as possible of what wrong you have done in your past. Write it, tell it to yourself. If you think you have the courage, you can tell it to the other person whom you wronged. If not, it's not necessary. You are going to see and you are going to accept yourself, and so confess it to yourself. Honestly, truly. The second is you own yourself. That I did these mistakes and I am still a good human being, full-fledged, whether I was with those mistakes, without those mistakes, before that mistake, and today also, I own myself with all my flaws and mistakes. And the third is sitting with compassion. How do you sit with compassion? Everybody talks about compassion, and I have found a very shortcut way is to take a picture of your childhood as small as you can remember and sit with this and tell it that I know you did certain things because you were not aware of it, or you were in survival. You had lacked self-worth because of what you have suffered as a child. And I own you, or I love you, and I have all my compassion towards you. You have all my warmth. The fourth step is forgive. Forgive yourself for all of that, completely and fully. And if you have had a lot of trauma as a child, this step is going to be very difficult because you will start questioning, how can I forgive this? How can I forgive that? How can I forgive that thing that I did? Why? Because that was too big. But try. See and try, because that's the only way forward. Try to forgive, however big it is. And then relapse will come, because when you start walking on a path, just like de-addiction, now you have started accepting yourself. This is a new journey. Think of it as de-addiction journey. But there will be relapses. So some mistakes you will still make of whoever you think you should be and you were not because of wanting to be a good human being. Now start walking, but there will be relapses. So be careful about that. And the next is the role of therapy. What do we do in therapy? The self-worth that I was talking about in this step where you are going to forgive yourself. There'll be coming, there'll be a lot of difficult phases in your life that you will not be able to do alone because they are really hard to even bring into consciousness. So in therapy, what we do is become aware of ourselves. And the misconception is that therapy is for people who have depression, anxiety, personality disorder, bipolar disorder. No, therapy is the journey of just becoming a whole human being, not a good human being, but a whole human being. So if that forgiveness part is difficult for you, start your journey of therapy. Thank you.